Hey, what's up, everybody? BDO 44 coming at you with another video. All right, so I have Lakers on my mind since we signed Christian Wood. Been thinking about what our roster looks like. I love everything about our roster right now except for one thing. We still need that center who's going to guard the big, heavy person. That's what it really comes down to. As long as we don't have anybody to really put actual physical weight on Jokic and Joel and whoever else is going to be in that vein, we're going to have trouble, man. Anthony Davis is too small to guard those people. I don't care how talented he is. He's already proven he can't guard Jokic. Nobody can guard Jokic, but if you're going to have any shot at guarding Jokic, the person has to be over 240. They have to be heavy, man. And that is the only thing that I think our team is missing right now. Altogether, everything else pretty much should vault us right where we want to be, but I'm concerned that we're still going to run into that big dude and he's going to knock us off. So that's, as a Laker fan, is what I'm most paying attention to right now. It's just, I love the acquisition of Christian Wood as it pertains to what he can do for our offense. I like that he's on this team to where we don't need him to be a defensive anchor of any kind. He doesn't have to do anything more than what he's good at, in theory, so long as we put him in good lineups. We got guys like Vanderbilt, AD, Rui plays defense pretty well for us. Obviously, you know, you want to see him down there with guys who can play some defense. You know, I think Jackson Hayes, we're probably gonna see him down there with Jackson, and that should be all right if Jackson Hayes plays some good defense. I'm not aware. We're gonna know about Jackson's defense soon, but it's one of those situations where it's like, we don't have any real problems. We're going to kill it in the regular season. I expect for us to be a top 2, top 3 team in the Western Conference so long as we stay healthy. But it's not about that. We don't care about the regular season around here. We care about playoffs and championships. And when it comes down to it, unless we're going to avoid Jokic, which I don't see possible, given the fact that I expect this team to be right there, even though I do think they're a bit depleted, I just don't think that counts when it comes to the Nuggets. After what we just saw, they won a championship with like 6 players basically. So I don't hold their shallow nature against them, and I'm not looking at their regular season at all. If they have a playoff shot, he's going to be right there. Sort of like the Miami Heat last year. The regular season wasn't really their thing, but once they get to the playoffs, they were able to do damage. That's what I kind of expect from the Nuggets this year. But it just comes down to this. My Lakers were the other team on the other side. We were the ones in the Western Conference Finals, and we didn't win a single game, even though we had really close games against them each and every night. In that situation, we could have very easily had that series tied 2-2, could have easily been up 3-1 if we would have just closed them out, but there was no way to close them out because we weren't heavy in the right places. Now, they did lose Bruce Brown, and that was one of the places. We didn't have a heavy enough guard in that position to really go up against Bruce Brown properly, and he was able to come in off the bench and ultimately just mow us down. But the real problem, of course, is the big boy Joker. The Joker's what, 270, something like that, 7 foot? If you don't have somebody that's heavy enough to guard him, or at least put pressure on him physically, then he's just going to have his way with you, just like he did. So, you know, Rob Pelinka's done an amazing job. I ain't going to sit here and say he's done anything less than an A++ job. He's been fantastic. But there is a hole in our roster, and it's a rather serious one because of who just won the dang championship and who ultimately also just won the MVP. These are 2 centers that are heavy as all hell. So I do not want people to think that I think we're out of the woods. We're not until we find somebody who can guard that guy. Now, a lot has been said about Jonas Valanciunas. His contract is kind of ugly. That's the problem. You don't necessarily want to fit that on your books, but he is the type of piece that I would like to see us ultimately acquire because he's big enough to throw at that man. Now, can he guard Jokic? No, of course not. Nobody can. But the point is, you want that heavy piece. You don't want to have any issues when it comes down to Jokic putting his back against the basket, shooting them little jump hooks, and not having any success stopping him when he decides to pass out of those situations as well to one of those shooters that he has. You know, and if Joel Embiid is going to have a good season, and chances are he's going to have success against you when you're one-on-one situations against Anthony Davis. Anthony will get some stops for sure, but he's too light in the back pocket. It's not going to work. So we're not the only team that has that problem. There's a couple teams that have that problem. They're going to have to find a big guy, man. They're going to have to sign somebody heavy in order to actually match up properly. This small ball stuff, not when Jokic is winning championships, not when Joel is winning MVPs. I'm sorry, that small ball stuff is not going to get it done. And I like our centers, but they're all skinny, man. Castleton, skinny. AD, skinny. Jackson Hayes, skinny. See what I'm saying? Christian Wood, skinny. These dudes, nobody's over 230. It's not going to cut it. I'm just telling you right now, it's not going to cut it. So I could totally see the Lakers making an in-season trade to get themselves that piece in order to put themselves in a position to ultimately want to compete like they want to against these big dudes. And look, it ain't the end of the world. Maybe we can avoid these guys. Maybe we get an opportunity to avoid them. Maybe we don't see them at all. Maybe Sacramento knocks them off or something. In that case, you feel a lot better about your chances so long as you avoid one of those two big dudes. But if you don't have that piece, you're in trouble. If Giannis happens to come out of the East, you're dealing with Brook Lopez. That's another one of them dudes. 7'1", 250 plus. He's not doing as much damage in the paint as he used to, but he's coming off one of his very best seasons. He's an enigma. There's no guarantee that he doesn't play till he's 40, just like Bron. So I'm telling you, you're going to need that piece. All of these contenders, if you don't have that piece, you're going to need it. So that's what's on my mind right now. But all in all, I'm super excited, man. I think I've changed my tune a little bit. I guess it's because he's now part of the team. But I'm excited about Christian Wood on this team a bit more now than I was in previous conversations leading up to this offseason, because I just didn't think too much of his piece as it pertains to the defensive issues that he brought to the table. I was turned off by how Jason Kidd lost faith in him, etc. But when you really break it down, it just comes down to what the Dallas Mavericks did not have versus what it is they were asking him to do. And he just was not the right piece for them. They did give up draft equity in his trade, which at the time didn't seem like a bad idea because the player they were picking up from the Houston Rockets was a monster. But they weren't able to get that out of him. I'm not as concerned about us with that. I'm not. I think we have more options on our team. We're just a better overall team. We're not going to be relying upon him to do any of that stuff that Dallas was relying on him for. He only has to score here, honestly. That's it. We don't really need him to do a whole lot else. Just be your efficient self. Shooting the mid-range jumper, getting into pick and roll situations, scoring the ball, being the roll man for our young playmakers, because we have some really, really good playmakers who are going to get him the ball. I didn't watch a whole lot of Dallas, so I'm not going to assume they didn't have that. Luka Doncic is obviously a fantastic playmaker. Kyrie Irving is more than capable of making plays as well, but I just didn't watch them very much. But I can tell you this. On this team, I'm very certain we got playmakers that are going to look for him. Obviously, LeBron James, Austin Reeves, Jalen Hood-Schifino. These guys are natural-born passers. And I think we're going to really enjoy having Jalen Hood-Schifino in them second units. I'm still very excited about him. And you guys know I was not excited about him on draft night, not necessarily because I didn't appreciate what I thought he could bring to the table, but just because I was a Cam Whitmore guy at that moment. When I saw his draft stock fall, I was thinking we should go with him, and then I came back around to understanding that ultimately we made the right decision for what it is that we're trying to do as a team. I still have Cam Whitmore ahead of Jalen Hood-Schifino overall, but that's when you break it down for what the Lakers are trying to do, they made the right decision in my humble opinion. However, that don't take away from the fact that I'm very high on Jalen Hood-Schifino now that I look at what our roster is and look at all of the different offensive guys that are ultimately going to be recipients of his passing, guys who can get in the pick and roll with him and ultimately take advantage of his mid-range game. Now, I want him to continue to work on his mid-range game because I know that's going to be prevalent for what his development is about. If he can continue to do that pick and pop, pick and roll thing, he's going to be a problem because he loves to shoot that mid-range jumper, and we know how highly efficient players who hit that shot regularly can be. Some of your favorite players in this league, they have made their name off of hitting the shot that Jalen Hood-Schifino is going to be looking to take over and over and over again. Problem is, he's a rookie, and he hasn't gotten the reps up as of yet to master that shot in the way that he will in year 4, 5, 6, and 7. He ain't DeMar DeRozan yet. He ain't LaMarcus Aldridge with the mid-range jumper. He ain't Kawhi Leonard with the mid-range jumper yet. But that is exactly what I expect him to develop into, as a person who's going to be a specialist from the mid-range. And in pick and roll situations, when you consider the fact that he's going to be making plays for others, that's going to open up our game so much, given the fact that he wants to attack that way. So I'm excited about the young rook and what he can do in getting guys like Cam Reddish, Christian Wood, some of the other guys that are going to be in that second unit, how he's going to be able to ultimately make them better while, of course, developing himself and getting better. Now, I don't want to put too much pressure on him. I do not want him to start. Obviously, we got D'Angelo Russell. Austin Reeves is going to be taking a huge step forward after this USA team thing. He's definitely a different player. He's coming back as this year with a lot more confidence. He's probably looking to take on more minutes and more opportunities to play make. So I'm excited about him possibly winning the point guard role this year, even though he's a natural born 2. I wouldn't be surprised if we have him starting at the 1 at some point throughout the course of the season, especially if for some reason we trade D'Angelo Russell and don't bring back a point guard. I don't know that we're looking to move D'Angelo Russell because I do like what he looks like on this roster, especially shooting the 3, just his natural born ability. He can also make fantastic plays for others. I'm not super in love with his pace, but I do like the fact that Jalen Hood-Schifino too plays in a similar pace, so we're going to have some parity between the two of them as we continue to try to run our offense. So I don't know that we'll see them on the floor very much together, but they're very interchangeable, and they very much play alike in terms of how they're going to be looking to set others up. So Anthony Davis, I don't think it's going to be on Anthony Davis to score as much this year. I think we needed him to score a bit more last season than we're asking him to this year. We got a lot more offensive talent, guys that could just fill her up. So if he has little 15-point games, only want to attempt 9 shots or something like that, we should be able to get the offense elsewhere. I hope the coaches are already working with what's the young fella that we just picked up in the second round? Max Lewis. That's somebody I want to see us work on his defense. We have to really zero in on him because he's going to be, if not Christian Wood, then it's going to be him. Those are going to be the 2 players that I look at and say they're not going to be defensive for us. Just from what I saw in the summer league, he just doesn't have a gift for the defensive side of the ball. He's going to have to be worked with. He's going to have to be, people got to be patient with him. He don't play D like that, but he has intangibles. And he has extreme athleticism, and if he starts working on these principles now as a rookie, he'll get better. He'll get better, and he'll make himself an average defender, I believe. So that's somebody I'm looking at as well. I don't think he's going to get too many minutes this season. I think he could possibly get some two-way minutes as well. I don't expect that he's considered a two-way player, but we do want to see him get the minutes necessary in the G League to ultimately get all the playing time that he may not get with the big squad, especially with a guy like Cam Reddish starting to pick up steam in this offseason with his workouts and stuff. I expect that Darvin Ham is going to want to use him a lot to see what he can do early in the season. Taurean Prince, same thing. You just expect a guy like Taurean Prince, who's a veteran in this league, not quite out of his prime. You expect for him to want to have a big year. And that's another thing. Quiet is kept. I do expect Taurean Prince to have a really good year with our team because at the end of the day, he's one of those guys that's playing for a contract. He's on a minimum, I think he's, $7 million or something like that. A guy like that, this stage in his career, probably going to want to be locked up for multiple years. So I would expect that with the minutes given, he's going to try to be as good as he can, and hopefully that translates to us being able to utilize him to all of his strengths. Yeah, we got so many different players on this team that makes us a really deep team. It's just going to be incumbent upon players to be patient with one another because it's going to be a lot of sitting going on. It's going to be a whole lot of sitting going on. We got some talented people that are just not going to play very much because it's just not enough. It's not enough minutes, not enough roster spots. But it ultimately means that guys are going to have different portions of their season dedicated to themselves. That's what that means to me. That means you're going to see some Taurean Prince probably in October, November. Probably see little Max Lewis in like March and April down to, that kind of thing. So I think our team is going to see plenty of one another. We're going to keep ourselves healthy. Hopefully we don't have the injury bug, but I think our rotation could change quite a bit throughout the course of the regular season so that everybody can get good enough playing time to ultimately get their goals done. Because we do have some guys on one-year deals and stuff like that, and I know they're going to want to showcase themselves to get that deal. Excuse me, Laker fans. So, yeah, that's what it is. I'm thinking about that right now. I'm very excited about the overall depth of our team. I don't think there are 3 teams in this league deeper than us. Now, that doesn't necessarily translate to a championship because, again, Denver just won it with like 8 players. But throughout the course of the regular season, when you consider how to keep yourself healthy, how to keep LeBron and AD healthy, you're going to want the depth that we have. So I always said if LeBron James really wanted to be doing something out there, he want to surround himself with a bunch of young players, not necessarily the old guys that he was targeting when he first got here. Nah, that was the wrong way to go. This is more like the type of team he can run with. They're going to get better as he ages. They're going to mature to get to a point where they can carry more of a heavy load as he ages. And he can just kind of freelance it. What I want to see Braun do this year is put the ball on the floor a bit more. Hopefully the foot is 100%. I don't imagine his body's going to allow him to be like the old Braun from Cleveland or nothing like that. But we don't have that pressure on the rim player that we had before. In Russell Westbrook, of course, and Dennis Schroeder, those guys really, really did that for us. Lonnie Walker, that's no longer on the case with those guys being all over the place now. So what we're going to have to do is just ask LeBron to get back out there, dribbling the ball a little more, putting pressure on the rim, dunking the ball as much as possible, laying the ball up, etc., just to keep us honest there. The acquisition of Christian Wood may help with that as well. That may help with that. So even though you don't expect him to put the ball on the floor too much, he's such a highly efficient offensive player, and he really does have that two-hand dunk that we always talk about that we're going to utilize quite a bit with our offensive talent. So it's a good thing, man, when you consider what type of playmakers that we have on this team and just how many players that we expect to be able to finish with this team. It's going to be exciting. You want to make sure that everybody gets their minutes, though, and that's going to be tricky for Darvin Ham. It really is. You want to make sure that you don't run some funky lineups, and that's not Darvin's nature. You're going to see situations where he's going to want to run small ball and stuff like that. It's just what we expect. In those games, I do expect for us to be frustrated, man. It just is what it is. We talk about it a lot every single game last year. It was something along those lines that drove us crazy. Lineups that didn't make any sense whatsoever. Stuff that didn't even look like it was going to work. He tried. So I hope that he's worked all that out of his system, but I'm poised to be more frustrated with when you got such a fantastic roster, you expect it to be run a certain way, and then you look at the coach and you just know he has different ideas in his head. So sophomore season, man, y'all know how I am. I'll bash a coach to death about stuff I don't like, but at the end of the day, if you can get us to the Western Conference Finals, obviously there's something to be said for you doing things correctly. It just didn't look that way throughout the course of the regular season. So that's really where my head is. I'm hopeful that Darvin Ham gives us a lot better in rotation since we have such a fantastically constructed roster, and he did not have that to start the season last year with his rookie year. Russell Westbrook and some of the depth issues that we had, some of our players just weren't very talented, to be honest with you. We got the most out of them, but it was very good once we made those trades to ultimately get a lot more talented. And in doing so, now we can see the cushion of a really full, good regular season, and that is going to be very exciting. Who's curious for me right now is Vanderbilt. I just want to know where he's going to fit in. I don't know exactly where we're going to use him. Obviously, he's one of our most important players. Obviously, one of our most gifted defenders. But his offensive game is here and there. I'd like to see us utilize his playmaking a bit because I know he can pass a bit better than we've been able to see as of yet. Particularly with the Utah Jazz, they were able to get that out of him. You look at his stats, he'd have like 7 points, 5 assists, 10 boards. That's the Vanderbilt that I'm expecting to see this year, especially with guys like Christian Wood now on the team. Max Christie's going to be stepping up. These are guys who are going to be the recipient of passes that he can make that ultimately will give him assists. So I'm excited about Vanderbilt's playmaking as well as, of course, his defensive prowess. Got to have him guarding these guards. You don't really want him in the paint trying to guard people like Wembanyama and Jokic and stuff like that. Even though he's one of your better defenders, let AD take care of all the interior guys. Let him kind of float around the perimeter and guard some of these guards. So yeah, that's something I'm noticing there. Also, understanding he grew an inch or two. So I didn't know he was still growing, but apparently Vanderbilt is now 6'10" or something like that. So that is going to be really interesting to see how that height works in his favor as he continues to defend the perimeter. Hopefully that can translate to him getting some some tips on 3-point shots and things of that nature, rebounding, etc. We just want to see us continue to get better at that. And yeah, I'm excited about this team. Now we're in September. We can start seeing training campers around the corner. You're starting to see fantasy basketball teams open up and stuff like that. You can start drafting and things of that nature. I think it's going to be a very, very exciting season for your LA Lakers, and I cannot wait for things to get started. I believe somewhere around early October. I don't remember. I'm sure I told you in one of the previous videos way back then the schedule for the summer league, not summer league, but the preseason, if it were out. I don't remember if I talked about that or not, but we will get to it when we know further, if we haven't already. So yeah, man, LeBron James, man, it's year 21. Obviously, we won a championship. We don't want anything less than a championship. We fell short of our goal last year. A lot of that had to do with guys just not being healthy. 2 superstars with foot injuries. It's kind of hard to win that way. But both of them are working out right now. Both of them appear to be healthy enough to do what needs to be done. And I just hope it translates to them having a very good season without any blemishes on their health. Again, we have plenty of depth, so it should not be an issue to see them succeed in load managing and still winning basketball games. And I do expect a lot of load management, man. I stayed away from LeBron James in my fantasy teams this year. I only got him on 2 teams out of, me, I drafted at least 50 of them already. It's just one of those situations where I just expect him to miss a lot of games. Not necessarily with injury, but with load management. We just got to manage him properly if we want him to be such a heavy superstar for us going forward. He can't be having to run around banging up against Paolo Banchero in these games like that, playing against the Rockets, trying to deal with Cam Whitmore. I don't want to see him having too many of those type of games. We want him in the high marquee games, and we ultimately need him 100% in the playoffs. So I do expect for him to miss quite a few games this year. Just in general, that's just what you expect when a guy's almost 40, man. It is what it is. With Anthony Davis, it's a little different. He's working on his conditioning. This is yet another year in a row where he's really, really taking it seriously. Although when he first got here, I thought he was pretty good as well. But that second year after the championship, he was just not in his best shape, and it translated to him looking sluggard, translated to him not playing very well, and ultimately translated to not being that great of a team for our standards. Last year, he came back in much better shape, and we saw a much better AD. This year, I want to see the same thing. Now, we know he's not going to be a pillar of great health. We know he's going to have his moments, stuff like that, falling on the ground, and we're all going to gasp, and it's going to be the same old stuff. But at the end of the day, if he's taking care of his side of the fence as it pertains to his conditioning, I do expect that he will have a very, very good season. So, yeah, that's where I'm at, man. I think Christian Wood is going to help with that as well. Just in general, he's going to give him yet another backup, a reliable backup. It should help with our rotations in general. Now, we're not going to be asking guys to play out of position as much because we have a solidified, talented big in place that's not going to force us to try to run Jackson Hayes out of, in situations where we'd rather not, or force Castleton into having a big rookie season or anything like that. Christian Wood should be able to hold down 18 minutes a night, maybe a little less than that, but he should be able to get in rotation and play some 5 for us. I don't know that it'll be necessary he plays 4 at all. I don't think it'll be necessary that he plays the 4, but we know he can thrive in the 4 as well, especially if you put a good center next to him like Anthony Davis to play the center, to play some defense rather. So that's going to be what it's about. Who do we put next to Christian Wood? Is it going to be Vanderbilt and AD? Or, you can't have Christian Wood being the only line of defense. That just cannot happen. And I know Darvin does things, like I said, I'm poised to see that. Unfortunately enough, I'm poised to see stuff that I really don't think I'll like. And so I just hope Darvin doesn't prove me right, man. I hope he doesn't prove me right. Salute to Kobe Minute, of course. For me right now, as I'm considering our team, that is my real only concern, man. It's just the rotations and how they translate to deficits if not done correctly. When your team is constructed so well, you want to see traditional rotations. You want to see traditional lineups. How do we work Gabe Vincent into the equation? Will he be a 1? Will he be a 2? How does that translate to Jalen Hood-Schifino's minutes? Does he play it all because of it? You know, D'Angelo Russell's going to get his minutes. Do we keep him all season? Do we trade him to free up that opportunity for others? Questions I don't have answers for. Who is our solidified 2? Because most of the guys we have play multiple positions, and one of those positions happen to be the 2. Austin Reeves, is he a natural 2? I think so. Gabe Vincent, he's a little undersized for the 2. I kind of like him a little more at the 1, even though he plays like a 2. You also don't mind having him play the 1. He plays some defense, so that's going to be fun to have him either position in theory. As we said, D'Angelo Russell, definitely a 1-2 combination. Max Christie seems like a natural 2, but he also plays the 3. So it's a lot of different things that make you wonder about who's going to slot in at the 2 spot. We have very comfortable 2 guards who play multiple positions. And that's another question. Max Christie, how much is expected of him this year? What type of rotational situations will he find himself in? Will he be with the starting unit? Will he be the second unit? I'd imagine the second unit. But nevertheless, he has shown that he has some significant pop to his game from year 1 to year 2, and that we potentially have a breakout candidate on our squad right there. So if he goes off and has a huge season, it would not shock me, because he showed us that the talent is there and he's been putting in a lot of work. So yeah, that's somebody I'm really excited about. Just understanding that he's going to be slotted in anew, because obviously we didn't have him in rotation last year. And we've kind of, removed some players. Of course, we already mentioned those guys who have gone. He's going to be able to take some of those Lonnie Walker minutes. He's going to be able to take some, some DS minutes in theory, that kind of thing. So, the team is deep. That's what it really comes down to. We have a super deep team. We are talented all up and down the roster. I don't think there's a single scrub on this roster at all. And a lot of guys have a lot to prove, man. Cam Reddish, the rookies here, all of them. And you think about two-way guys as well. Think about a guy like D'Moi Hodge. I have a theory about D'Moi Hodge. I think Laker fans are going to find out they're a better team with him on the floor, just in general, because of what he does two-way in terms of his defensive talents and ultimately his catch-and-shoot ability, which is going to be great for those playmakers. I know he's not expected to have a role this year because we do have him on a two-way contract. But he's one of those guys that he just makes things happen. And when you consider how talented of a defensive team we were last year, he slots in as a defensive player who's got offensive strengths. That ability is not something you find everywhere. And I got a feeling we're going to see more of him than we're expected to see. So keep an eye on D'Moi Hodge, man. I just got a feeling that he's going to be on the floor for us in some key moments, and nobody's expecting that but me. And a guy like Alex Fudge, I think the future is for him. He's kind of having he's going to be our Max Christie this year, in my opinion. I don't expect to see much of him at all, but I think the upside is crazy. And about 2 years from now, he's going to be a regular rotation small forward for us, catching lobs and helping us defensively, and hopefully hitting jumpers as well and doing different things that he's going to work into his game with the G League this year. So I don't want us to trade some of them dudes. That's the point that I'm trying to make here. We got some really good two-way guys. Castleton, obviously I handpicked him before I even really knew what his name was. I was aware of his game. It told us to go get that white center that could pass the ball and run the floor. We got him. So clearly I want to see him on this team. Clearly I want to see him get an opportunity. But I don't know, with the acquisition of Christian Wood, that he's going to ultimately be able to play as much as we were expecting he may be forced to. But that's a good thing. You don't want a rookie thrown out there, even though he's an older rookie. I think he played like 4 years, so he's an older rookie. But I don't care to see him out there thrown to the fire, not necessarily. If he proves himself, then that's what it is. But if we're going to be good to him, we're going to allow him to develop without so much pressure to be a win now guy. So yeah, that's what I'm looking at. I think this is a good situation for our young players because of the vets that we have in front of them, because of the fact that we're a win-now situation that'll give them some early playoff experience in theory. So all of this works very well for the young players, so long as they're patient and keep a good attitude, which I have no reason to think they won't. So yeah, man, it's a lot to like there, man. This Los Angeles Lakers team looks excellent on paper. We got to see how it translates. We got to not have key injuries that ultimately decimate us and have us relying upon players that we'd rather not. But even if we do run into injuries, we should be able to withstand them and keep ourselves in the playoff hunt regardless. And that's what it's about. You guys heard me talk about this. Don't worry about your regular season record. Don't worry about that. If you happen to scale the top of the Western Conference, that is exactly what we want. But the whole point of the Western Conference, in my opinion, is to just make the playoffs. Because at the end of the day, I don't expect there's going to be much of a separation between teams this year. I just really think that everybody's pretty much going to have the same record. And so divisional games are going to be more important in these situations. The in-season tournament and trying to win that is going to be important for all teams in the West. And just ultimately making sure that you know for a fact that you have all of your solidified roles. Everybody knows what they're supposed to be doing. Everybody's on the string. That we're practicing regularly, because that's a big deal, Lakers. Practice regularly. We talked about this a lot last year. Guys missing practice because they're older. Guys missing practice because of injuries. Can't win a championship that way. Guys are going to have to be on a string, especially with all these young players that we got. So that's going to be on our coaching staff and on our leaders to, practice regularly. Don't go 5 and 6 days without practice and making all kinds of excuses for why you didn't schedule practice. I just don't think it works, man. It helps for the conditioning. It helps for the overall cohesiveness of the team on both sides of the floor. And these too many players we got to develop to not be practicing. So that's something I really, really am keen on the Lakers doing this year. I don't want to hear any excuses as a fan. I don't. Too many of those last year, and I think we fell short of our goal, and it had something to do with that. So, yeah, man. All in all, I don't think Denver's the same team. With Bruce Bowen gone, they're bringing in some young players. They do have some of what they brought back, but I think some of the key stuff that they were relying upon to succeed in beating us is gone. Bruce Brown was key in beating us, and he's just not on the roster anymore. They've replaced him with some rookies and stuff like that. Julius Strother, Hunter. I never know Hunter's name, but I know who he is. He can shoot the ball. He's going to be a key rookie for them. And, I think they did okay in the draft in the long run, even though I was critical of them draft night. Now that I've seen what their players can do, they do have some nice guys that they're bringing in. But at the end of the day, with that Bruce Brown piece gone to Indiana, I think it's going to be a much easier path to us defending them than we had in the Western Conference Finals. I see that coming. And so, yeah. I also believe that you could see some more, teams emerge that we were going to have to deal with. Teams like Houston, I think, could actually emerge. As I look at the Houston Rockets, they got so much fantasy relevant talent. It's not even funny. So many young upside, players on that team. I would not be surprised if they were a contender, especially with the coach coming in. So they're a team I think we're going to have to deal with. OKC is obviously a team you got to deal with. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander could be an MVP candidate this year if he stays healthy, although I would caution everybody to expect him to stay healthy because he has been injury prone throughout the course of his career. Luka the Don is not going anywhere. It's just year 5 for him. I wouldn't be surprised if he wins MVP this year. So it's just a lot of stuff in the Western Conference you got to be aware of. Obviously, Wembanyama's in place. I think Wembanyama's going to shock some people because I think Wembanyama is underrated right now. I'm looking around, and I don't think people expect a lot out of Wembanyama. I do. I expect plenty out of Wembanyama. I think Wembanyama is going to step into the league as one of the best shot blockers on the planet. And I think he's going to come in and shock people because they don't really know exactly how big he actually is, man. This dude is 7'5", man. And he plays like a guard. He can shoot threes all day. And he's smart. He makes plays for others. He rebounds well. Only thing he doesn't have going for himself is strength. He's not very strong yet. He's not big. So he too is going to have somebody next to him that can defend these big dudes. And if they don't get that piece, if they're expecting Jeremy Sohan in year 2 to be able to do it, it ain't happening. But there's no expectations for the San Antonio Spurs anyway. I don't expect for them to be a contender. In fact, I don't expect them to win 30 games. But as far as Wembanyama being a problem for us, yeah, he's going to be one. He's going to be a problem for everybody. So be ready for that. So I'm just looking around the Western Conference. You know, New Orleans, Zion's back. You don't know how good Zion's going to actually be when he's coming back. He's working out, but I don't think this is a one-off season kind of thing for Zion. Zion's going to have to reinvent his entire body. It's going to take a couple years to do it. And if he doesn't change his diet, he's going to be facing more injuries. So I'm not too high on New Orleans. B.I. is having a subpar USA team type of thing. I don't know if that's indicative of him struggling in the, just in general, or just him not necessarily fitting in on the roster with the USA team. But he's having a bad offseason. I think that he will bounce back in the regular season to make up for it. So look out for B.I. He'll probably make an all-star team this year. And, the Phoenix Suns, man, y'all know I'm big on the Phoenix Suns. Even though I hate, leading up to what they did, I was bashing them in. But I told y'all there was ways for them to ultimately put themselves in a position to be a team that I think could be a contender, so long as they found something out of nothing and grabbed key players from different situations, ultimately make them have a cohesive bench, because that's what they were lacking, and they did that. I think, in fact, they did a fantastic job putting together their team, and so now I look at them as contender, just like everybody else does. You know what I mean? I'm not low on them in any way, shape, or form. I expect them to be right there. So we got our work cut out for us. You go up against some of these Western Conference teams that are being put together right now, and you couple that with the guys that are already in place, like Memphis and Sacramento, Golden State and Clippers. It's going to be a dogfight. It don't matter if you have, whatever record. You just got to make sure you're in that playoff hunt. Don't sleep on Minnesota as well with Ant-Man. Clearly, Ant-Man's ready to make a huge jump in his career. Karl Towns is coming in healthy. I don't know if they're going to trade him or not, but if I were them, I'd showcase him a lot with the intentions of trading him. I know I can't move Rudy Gobert, although I would like to if I'm the Minnesota Timberwolves. You look at a guy like Leonard Miller. I expect for him to be a high-level rookie this season for the Minnesota Timberwolves. Obviously, McDaniels coming off the broken hand. He's going to come in with a chip on his shoulder. I just expect Minnesota to be a much better team than I was talking about them being. They made the playoffs, obviously, that kind of thing, or did they make the play-in tournament, however that went. The point is, they were better than I thought. And this season, they're not going to catch me off guard. So you see, the Lakers are a team that was in the Western Conference Finals, but if things fall the wrong way, we can find ourselves outside of the playoffs because of all of the parity in the Western Conference. Now, I'm not predicting that, but what I'm telling you is it's not crazy. So we need to be prepared for a good regular season, and we got to just get into the playoffs. That's all it's about. Dallas, I didn't even mention Dallas. Look out for them. So it's one of those situations where I tell y'all, as I think about the Houston Rockets, they could potentially have a bad season. They could also potentially have a fantastic season, because at the end of the day, they literally have more talent than most teams. Though most people won't see it that way, once you get them on the floor and start understanding how high most of the players that they're going to be using ceiling actually goes, you're going to find it's higher than most of the teams who have these regular role players and their ceiling. Your Cam Whitmores, your Jabari Smith, your Alperen Sengun, Green, Porter. These dudes' ceiling go much higher than the average role players, much higher. So if they put it all together, I would not at all be surprised to see them be the other team in the Western Conference Final situation. And so that's what I'm telling y'all. We got to stay healthy. We got to have good rotations. You can't take games off. You can't be losing close games like we did last year. All that stuff we were doing last year, it didn't work in the regular season throughout the course of the first half of the year when we didn't have our trade made yet. Some of that stuff we will not get away with this year. The margin for error will not be as strong for our team with the field just overall getting better in the Western Conference. So I just want to tell everybody, there's no guarantee that any of the teams that you think are going to be contenders will actually contend, because everybody in the Western Conference essentially could potentially contend. That's what I'm saying to you. So throw seeding out the window, throw records out the window, just make the playoffs. So that's what I got to say, man. That's my mindset in regards to my Lakers and the field. We're super excited about this season, man. I ain't gonna lie to you. This is 1-1. We are ready for this season. I don't know that we're going to win a championship or get back to the Western Conference Finals. That was a hell of a feat. But what I can say is our roster is better than it was last year. Period. Both halves of the year is better. We brought back everything we wanted to bring back, We let go of everything that we could afford to let go of and upgrade it in just about every single way possible. All we need is that heavy center that we could throw at Jokic and Joel, and I think we'll be good to go. So that's what I got to say, man. My name is BDF44. Thank you all for watching. Bye.